her guests online and take a ride aboard the Common Sense Express.
All right. Well, let's talk about this forum, this candidate forum that was held last night. It was sponsored by the Republican Women. That's a group here in town that's been around a long time, and I've been a member of that group for many years. It's usually they usually do such a good job with their forums and their special events that they put on. The event last night was at the Coeur d'Alene Inn. It was a dinner, and then the candidates were also going to be given a chance to speak. So this was all set up in advance, and there were probably at least 25 to 30 candidates in the room. The room was really full. It wasn't a very big room, but it was full. And the candidates, I think the candidates outnumbered the other people that were in the room, which was pretty amazing, because one of the things they did was they started out by going around with, they just passed around a couple of wireless microphones, and each candidate introduced themselves to the room as these microphones were being passed around. And honestly, I think there were more candidates there than other people, which was a surprise. But there were some issues with the organization last night, and I don't want to, make this a negative thing or anything, but the people that are the woman who's usually in charge of Republican Women has stepped down from her position for medical reasons, and so there was a scramble to try to set this thing up, and I think that there were some crossed messages, probably the best way to put it. So having 30 candidates in the room, and there was one podium and one standard microphone, and then they did pull in those two wireless mics, but it was a very small stage. There was no place to put anyone to have any kind of a back and forth discussion or debate, if you will. And so they really had to fly by the seat of their pants to try to get that set up. So as it turned out, there were some candidates there that were from the Republican Central Committee running for their precincts to be precinct chair. That was just a small handful of people, and I don't think they expected to have anything more than just a brief introduction of themselves, and that's what they got. There were several county candidates running for Kootenai County offices. Jim Brannon was there, who's running for county clerk. His opponent, Don Pishner, was also there, running for county clerk. Steve Matheson and Lori Thomas, who are both running for county treasurer, were there. Mark Eberline was there, who is running, and Todd Tundy, who are running for county commissioner, and Dave Stewart, who has a shoe-in. I mean, he's running for county commissioner, but he doesn't have to run against anyone because the two other people in his race pulled out. So he's alone, and he doesn't have to even worry about that. But when it came to the legislative districts, there were all of the legislative candidates from District 2, 3, and 4. So that's 4 is the Coeur d'Alene area. 3 is the Post Falls, generally the Post Falls area and kind of south of the river, down across the river. And District 2 is up a little bit north in the Hayden area, and then it wraps all the way around and down the east side of Coeur d'Alene. So even down to Harrison, I believe. It's just this huge, huge district. But anyway, so all of those people were there. And then we had special guests, Senator Russ Fulcher, who is running for governor, and Idaho County Commissioner Jim Schmelik, who was my special guest on our radio show last week. Jim drove up from the Grangeville area just for the event last night. So they were invited, and they accepted the invitation, and they traveled to get here. I'm telling you that because that was one of my the things that I was most surprised about last night was the way that those two gentlemen were treated and involved in the program, or not involved, actually, enough. So Governor Otter was invited, and he didn't show. he has apparently now ducked out of 4 candidate forums that he was supposed to be participating in. He does not seem to want to be up in front of the general public and take questions, which is really too bad. He has, been our governor for 8 years and very involved in things before that. So he's well known in the state, but some of his decisions lately have been very controversial, and people want to ask him why he made the decisions that he did. But he's not coming to these candidate forums. I have to give a lot of respect to Russ Fulcher, who has shown up at every one of the forums and takes all questions that are asked to him. Russ Fulcher told me yesterday that Governor Otter did agree that he actually would arrive and participate in one televised forum that will be coming up. But his condition for accepting that invitation was that there would be no people from the public. The general public would not be allowed to come to that forum. So he really does not want people to come. And I think maybe it was from the Lincoln Day dinner a couple of weeks ago. The governor was there, and so was Russ Fulcher. And it was pretty obvious that Russ Fulcher had more support in the room from the applause, and I don't think the governor appreciated that, so he's not interested. Anyway, Senator Fulcher was told, because the governor, this was before the event, Senator Fulcher was told that he would not get to answer the regular questions that were asked, that because the governor was not attending, Russ Fulcher would only get 3 minutes to speak to the group. Now, Russ flew up from Boise, spent the night in the hotel, and I just thought that was pretty incredulous, that they were only going to give him 3 minutes because the governor didn't come. And Jim Schmelik wasn't allotted any time at all. So what happened is, once the forum actually got started, I talked to some people, and someone else did too, and actually later in the forum, these two did get to answer some of the questions, but it was very hit and miss, spotty, and it wasn't set up in an organized fashion at all for them. So the way that this forum started, I thought, would be of interest to you. Oh, first of all, they didn't have any place for the candidates to all sit. So during dinner, Russ Fulcher and Jim Schmelik, who were at the table I was sitting at, and we were right up at the front table, the organizers mentioned to us that they were going to be moving chairs, and so up to the front next to the stage. And so Jim Schmelik and Russ Fulcher popped right out of their chairs, leaving their dinners on the table, and they went and got the extra chairs for these ladies, and they set them up all along the front with almost no help from anyone else, and I was surprised they didn't even get a thank you or an acknowledgement at all for doing that. And they were the two highest ranking officials in the candidates in the room. They're very nice men, and they're great gentlemen. So the candidate forum started out with Russ Fulcher getting his 3 minutes. He got to speak for 3 minutes, and then the organizers of the forum said, "Well, the governor is not here because he's at a Lincoln Day dinner down in southern Idaho." But Russ Fulcher and Jim Schmelik had just been chatting at our table and had told me that they were really glad because the Lincoln Day dinner circuit, which they attended all of them across the whole state, and Governor Otter only went to some, that the circuit was over. All the Lincoln Days were complete. And then here someone is making an excuse for Otter by saying he's at a Lincoln Day dinner. First of all, those Lincoln Day dinners are not held on Tuesday nights. They're always on a weekend. And so that was obviously just a Band-Aid to patch over why Otter might not have been there. But Senator Getty got up with a letter from the the governor, and Senator Getty announced that he was asked to read the governor's letter because he was the most senior legislator in the room. It was also kind of curious to me that Senator Getty's wife was one of the organizers of the program, so that looked a little bit odd that he was the one who got up to read the governor's letter, and the governor's letter just said the usual things, I'm sorry I can't be there, but here's what I am stand for. And it was the usual platitudes without really saying anything. Obviously, you can tell I'm not a huge supporter of Butch Otter in his politics right now. I don't think his leadership has been what we need in Idaho, and I'm definitely hoping we have a change. He's a very nice man, Butch Otter, and he's a fabulous speaker. But I think he has seen better days in terms of his ability to represent the people of Idaho. So now we're going to take a little break because I want to talk to you a lot more about what was actually said and the content of this legislative forum last night. So when we come back, we'll get into all of that. And please stick with us. You are listening to the Heads Up Radio Network.
In this world of moving commerce, your business is either moving forward or moving backwards. Make sure it moves forward. Maybe it's time we build a spot that fits your image. Blue Creative Group takes the time needed to put together a spot you want people to hear and make it a marketing tool to drive customers to your business. With the tools and experience ad agencies and radio stations lack, Blue Creative Group will score it, voice it, and produce it, and if need be, place it on radio and TV stations throughout the Northwest. Blue Creative Group lets you make your branding personal to your target audience. Be creative, be productive, while being cost-effective. Be Blue. Blue Creative Group. Creative marketing plans for the 21st century. Call today, 208-758-0546. 208-758-0546.
Sorry, Jen, I can't make it to our coffee date today. My kids are sick again, and I have a terrible headache, and medicine just doesn't seem to help.
Seems like you guys are always sick. Have you had your house tested for mold?
Come on, Jen, you know me. I keep my house spotless. There's no mold here.
That's what I thought about our house. We had the same problems last year and called mountain mold testing. They came right out and inspected our whole house for mold.
Really? What happened?
Well, mountain mold testing took air samples, and the lab test showed that we were breathing dangerous, invisible mold. We got the mold cleaned up, and now we don't have any more wheezing, headaches, or congestion. They gave us our health back.
Mold can cause numerous health problems, including allergies, chronic headaches, asthma, and lung infections. Children, pregnant women, and the elderly are especially susceptible. Call Mountain Mold Testing at 208-660-8877. That's 208-660-8877. Online at mountainmoldtesting.com.
Jump aboard the Common Sense Express. Now here's your host, Mary Souza.
Hi, we're back again, and we've been talking about the legislative forum that took place last night at the CdA Inn. It was sponsored by the Republican women, Kootenai County Republican women, and there were just a tremendous number, probably 25 to 30 candidates at this event. I thought the turnout for the candidates was wonderful, and it was a very good opportunity for people to hear what the candidates really have to say on certain issues. The questions all came from the audience and were submitted on little 3x5 cards, and then all of the candidates, the legislative candidates, were up in the very front of this very crowded room, sitting on chairs facing the audience. It was kind of a unusual setup, and then the wireless microphone was just passed from one end to the other, giving each one of us usually about 1 minute to respond to the questions. But you multiply that 1 minute times, I think there were 18 or 19 candidates lined up there. And I was feeling sorry for the audience after a while because it must have been tedious hearing answers to the same question all of those times. But anyway, we've got a caller on the line, and he was at the, I believe he was at the forum last night. And so let's see what Don had to say. Hi, Don, how are you?
I'm great, Mary. I'm enjoying the show.
Thank you? Thank you.
No, go ahead.
No, I just this is such a loose format today, but I just wanted to just kind of chat and discuss what happened last night. So, what was your take on some of what went on? Did you did the lineup of candidates all across the front? Was that boring from the audience standpoint, or did you keep your interest as the mic was going down the line?
Sitting in the back of the room,
yes,
with Kathy Ann Nonini and some other folks, I had a chance to look at the whole room, and there are a lot of side conversations going on, particularly when you could tell that the folks who were speaking were not the ones that the listeners wanted to listen to. They zoned out very quickly. It was. I'm afraid that it was mind-numbing in its boredom at certain points, because it dragged on. It was very sad, because it was an opportunity. I had to laugh because I was telling some folks about last night, and I said that half the room was candidates, and it, like you said, I was very pleased to see how many candidates were there. I spoke with a couple of friends of mine who weren't able to make it, and at the end of the evening, I really wonder if any minds were changed whatsoever, particularly those of us who have been attending a lot of the various forums and getting to meet the folks. I didn't hear anything new. It would have been nice if it had been set up along the lines of what Ron Mendive did 2 years ago, where he put together the forums over at the Candlelight Church there on 95. Those forums were just so well done, because the audience had an actual chance to get up and speak, to ask questions directly of the candidates, and they had to be quick on their toes. One of the things that I noticed was that prior to the questions, before the candidates all lined up front there, I noticed that I think it was John Getty, at least one of the candidates was up talking to Kelly, and it looked to me like they were reviewing some of the questions, and I thought that was not real kosher. Because why should they be given the advantage to see what the questions were and prepare their brains for it when all the rest of the candidates weren't? As it turned out, once the questions were asked, it took 18 plus minutes. That's if each candidate actually stuck to their 1 minute, or there eventually became 45 seconds.
Which most of us did not. I certainly didn't.
No. No. So, it was like you said, it was a good way to get people together, but I think it could have been handled a whole lot better. It was unfortunate that the candidates were sitting down, so we couldn't keep an eye on them because of the length of the room. But,
right.
These are minor things. And to give the Republican women a pass on, because of the recent leadership change,
yes.
That was difficult for them, and I understand that. So,
very much. And I think they were really scrambling. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. One of the things that I wanted to bring up that I thought was that really, because I was listening, try as much as possible, I was trying to listen to the various candidates, and the candidates, one of the questions that were asked of all the candidates was what you consider to be the most important aspect of who you are and what you believe in.
Yes.
And a couple of the candidates, and these are candidates that I don't support, said that they felt that efficiency was the most important thing. And a couple of the candidates that I do support had said that honesty was the most important thing. And for any candidate up there to not lead off with saying that honesty was the most important thing about them and who they would be as legislators really shook me, that they consider efficiency to be more important than honesty. to me, says something about who they are, where they are coming from, as they say.
You know, Don, I was surprised by that too, and I was surprised that so many of the candidates that are aligned with each other, I don't support them either, but they have an alliance between them, and they all use that same word, efficiency or effectiveness, one or the other, and I had to question in my mind, why would they say that was the most important characteristic? Is it because if you're effective or efficient, you cut deals, you get bills passed because you make alliances, which I think is part of doing the job down there, but is that the most important part, getting a deal?
Exactly.
Is it like the end justifies the means?
Well, that's what my immediate thinking was, and now they may not have meant it that way, but perception is reality in cases like this. That's how folks look at this thing, and if I come away, pardon me a second, if I come away with that impression, who else did also?
Yes.
I thought I heard people talking about it as I was leaving the forum, that other people were remarking on the very same thing. What's wrong when efficiency is more important than honesty? You'd have thought that every one of them would have jumped on that like a duck on a June bug. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm an honest person, and I'll be efficient too. But they didn't, which worries me.
Well, I think they had talking points, though, Don. I think it's really obvious that because they used the same language as each other on several of the issues. On Common Core, they all said, well, it's not really Common Core, it's Idaho Core. And they all said about Idaho Core, and I won't get into that topic right now, but that we should just give it a try. They all had that little phrase in there. We should just give it a try. And then when it came to the character trait, it was efficiency or effectiveness. And I really was disappointed because I know many of those people I've known for a long time, and they're good people. It's just they're running for this office, and they're being coached by people who give them these talking points, which makes me think they haven't really investigated these issues on their own. They're just taking what they're told to say, and that disturbs me.
I absolutely agree with you. Yes, I absolutely agree with you. I'm running for a precinct committeeman, and I've had people helping me with this. This is my first run for elected office, and I've certainly had people assisting me, but I'm only asking them for their thoughts. Steve Vick and Vito Barbieri are my mentors, and they have been very good about saying, give me some tips and things like that, but they know that I'm my own man, and I'm going to speak about who I am and what I believe in. And the number of the candidates that I support were doing the very same thing. They were not lockstep. And to see that there is this lockstep mentality of everybody using the same talking points is very bothersome to me. I think it's very unfortunate that in a state that is as proud of its independence as we are, that these folks don't assert that independence and say who they really are. And that's scary to me, because why aren't they willing to say, here's who I am, here's what I stand for, and if you don't like it, well, that's who you're going to get, and don't vote for me. But why should they have to kowtow to somebody in order to try to suck up as many votes as they can get, and then turn around and change things like we know a couple of folks did when they got down to Boise? They leave Coeur d'Alene area and they move down to Boise for the legislative period, and all of a sudden, boom, they're doing things very different than what they said they would do and what their constituents wanted to do.
That's right, Don. So, hey, Don, can you hold on for a little bit? We just have to take a quick break, and then we'll come back.
Oh, certainly.
Because I really want to get into a little bit more of the issue of effectiveness versus honesty and how we can take that a little further. We've been talking to Don. He went to the Republican Women Forum last night, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation. So hold on, and you're listening to the Heads Up Radio Network.
In this world of moving commerce, your business is either moving forward or moving backwards. Make sure it moves forward. Maybe it's time we build a spot that fits your image. Blue Creative Group takes the time needed to put together a spot you want people to hear. and make it a marketing tool to drive customers to your business. With the tools and experience ad agencies and radio stations lack, Blue Creative Group will score it, voice it, and produce it, and if need be, place it on radio and TV stations throughout the Northwest. Blue Creative Group lets you make your branding personal to your target audience. Be creative, be productive, while being cost-effective. Be Blue. Blue Creative Group. Creative marketing plans for the 21st century. Call today, 208-758-0546. 208-758-0546.
Sorry, Jen, I can't make it to our coffee date today. My kids are sick again, and I have a terrible headache, and medicine just doesn't seem to help.
Seems like you guys are always sick. Have you had your house tested for mold?
Come on, Jen, you know me. I keep my house spotless. There's no mold here.
That's what I thought about our house. We had the same problems last year and called mountain mold testing. They came right out and inspected our whole house for mold.
Really? What happened?
Well, mountain mold testing took air samples and the lab test showed that we were breathing dangerous, invisible mold. We got the mold cleaned up and now we don't have any more wheezing, headaches, or congestion. They gave us our health back.
Mold can cause numerous health problems, including allergies, chronic headaches, asthma, and lung infections. Children, pregnant women, and the elderly are especially susceptible. Call Mountain Mold Testing at 208-660-8877. That's 208-660-8877. Online at mountainmoldtesting.com.
Join Mary and her guests online and take a ride aboard the Common Sense Express.
Okay, we are back, and we've been talking about the Republican Women Candidate Forum that was held last night at the CdA Inn, and on the phone we have Don, who has been talking with us about his reaction. He was there in the audience and listening to all of it. He is himself running for his precinct chair position in his area, and so he has been sharing with us his views. Don, the other thing that I wanted to mention was, did you notice the applause at the beginning, or I think it was the first question or two? The applause was noticeably stronger for some of the candidates than the others, and that's when the leadership, the organizers of the forum, decided that there shouldn't be any applause. Please hold your applause. Hold your applause. And the other thing that they decided to change midway through was they said, we want no references to your opponents, even to their records or anything. We just want it to all be friendly and nice.
Yeah. Yes. By the way, speaking of being very nice,
yes,
I think that your comment about Getty's reading of Otter's letter as a Band-Aid that's very sweet. But, I know I got spanked for Band-Aids when I was a kid. So.
All right, Don, tell me what you really think then.
Yeah, right. Come on, Otter. Just out with it. We're not. You just don't think it's important enough to be up here, and just be a man about it. Man up, as we say. But he doesn't do that. And I'm glad you made a point of saying that Jim and Russ traveled to get here.
Yes, they did.
And put themselves out to do it. Now, obviously, they're going to try to do as much as they can while they're here because they're efficient, but they're also highly honest about how they do things.
Yes.
And so come on, Butch. Why weren't you up here? There were opportunities for you, and I made a comment last night that what does a turtle do when it's threatened? It pulls its head in. Pulls the head and the legs in, and I feel like that's what Butch is doing. He's just pulling his head in. Either that, or he is just being so arrogant that he doesn't want to debate, doesn't feel that Russ is worth a debate. Well, I think Russ's numbers show that he's making some very good strides, and Butch might be just very sorry that he didn't choose to hold a debate with Russ over this whole thing.
But, Don, I'm not sure that it's because I think he thinks Russ is a very formidable opponent. Russ has been in the Senate. He's been leadership in the Senate, state Senate, for 10 years, and he's well respected in the Senate. So he is a very strong candidate to be running for governor. Otter has some things that he has done recently, some decisions that he has made that I think he should be concerned about. Let me just read off a few of these that I jotted down. Now, this obviously, these are just things that are issues with everyone. Idaho's economy has not recovered well, and we still have unemployment rate in the north part of our state. Our unemployment rate is still near 6.7%. And we have Idaho has the highest number of minimum wage jobs per capita in the nation. We have one of the lowest average wage levels in the nation, and our state ranks 18th in negative business impacts, and we have a worse rating in that than all the states around us, even liberal Washington and Oregon. And then we could go on and on about the Obamacare and the Common Core and all of those. So I think Otter has a lot of things that he's kind of dodging right now.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it, but that's the problem. He is dodging it, and you'd think that he'd want to be up there defending himself, particularly with Russ making the strides that he is making. And I don't know, perhaps he's concerned that if he goes on and debates Russ, that more people are going to find out who Russ is, and they're going to like what he says. Maybe he's ducking it because of that. I don't know.
I think that's more likely true. I think that makes a lot more sense, because if it was Otter and Fulcher together at the forums up here, it would draw a crowd 3 or 4 times the size that was there last night. And then Otter would have to really show his cards. He would have to defend his decisions, and he hasn't had to do that in public yet.
Well, you know, I'm surprised that he isn't out making hay with 2 bills that he signed, both that are firearms related. And I personally think that he signed it because it's an election year, and he knows they were pretty hot topics. You know, the concealed carry for students and employees on the campuses.
Right, the guns on campus bill. Mm-hmm.
Right. But the reason I put it that way,
yes,
Mary, is because people don't understand that those of us who have CCWs could already carry on campus. It's those who are students and or are employed that we're now allowed to do so come July 1.
And as Kathy Sims likes to say, she says, right now, Representative Kathy Sims, you can right now, she said, open carry. Anyone can walk onto any college campus with an open carry, with a gun in a holster. So she said, that's the law right now, and this law.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the nullification, the federal nullification that Steve Vick sponsored.
Yes.
That Butch signed. You know, he did it. I personally think he did it because it's an election year, and he'd have been a fool not to. But you'd think that he would want to capitalize on the fact that he did indeed do those things and come out, and particularly up here in the north, where we have an awful lot of gun owners, and he would tout, "Look what I did for you." But he's not even doing that.
Well, but then he would have to answer these other questions that are a little bit stickier than that.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, Dawn, did you think last night when I don't always follow the rules, but so when it was my
You're
turn.
Such a bad girl.
I know. When it was my turn to speak to the issue of the character trait, I said that honesty and integrity, I think I worded it being straightforward with people, and that I promised I always would be with the voters, that I always have been. But I did mention that they should be able to tell the difference between what a politician says during the campaign and what they actually do during their time in office. And one way to do that is to go to the Idaho Freedom Foundation's AccountableIdaho.com website and look up the voting record. And I mentioned openly, I said, that my opponent, John Getty's voting record there is a minus 61. Oops.
Oh, you ruffled some feathers over that one, Mary.
I think I did, but I said it nicely.
You said it very nicely, but you know what? The truth hurts. And if you can't stand the heat, and that's the... And it was after you said that, I think, that Kelly et al. Decided that, we can't allow that kind of stuff. But you know what? That's what this doggone forum's all about, is to contrast. It's comparison and contrasting. And that was an outstanding shot on your part.
Thank you.
And I think it was well-timed and completely appropriate because it's the truth.
Yes, it is the truth. And when we're saying that we want to be honest, we have to be able to stand up and say what needs to be said. Hey, Don, I really appreciate your time calling. Thank you so much for your input, and hope we can talk again soon.
I look forward to it, Mary. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. And thanks to all of you for holding on. We're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll come back with more discussion about last night's forum. Hold on. You're listening to the Heads Up Radio Network.
Avalanche Cleaning and Restoration is ready for spring. Are you? Let Avalanche get you ready for summer by making your home or business springtime clean. For your carpet, upholstery, general home cleaning, window cleaning needs, even emergency cleanups, call 208-762-2227. If you've got an emergency, 208-818-4411, or go online at avalancheclean.com. Avalanche, clean, safe, and reliable. Looking for something different to do tonight? Thinking of a restaurant that you haven't been to for a while, or a place to take the kids out for a fun night? Ever find yourself in this situation? This is a question that prompted publisher Jeanette Dunn to create Idaho Cuisine and Spokane Sizzle dining and entertainment guides. And it just keeps getting better with their pocket guides, online editions, and now online local restaurant finder at sizzlingcuisine.com. Also find local wineries, breweries, distilleries, great recipes from local chefs, hot spots and cool happenings, and chances to vote for your favorites. Be in the know about local happenings when you sign up for the Sizzling Cuisine e-News, delivered to your desktop weekly, and be eligible to win a free dinner for two. You've always enjoyed reading the magazines. Now it's easy to flip through them online too. Makes it easy to find restaurants that offer great menus prepared by experienced staffs who really care to serve you the best in local cuisine. Spokane Sizzle and Idaho Cuisine are online at sizzleincuisine.com. We do the footwork to make it easy for you to find just what you're looking for. It's time to take a ride on the Common Sense Express. And now here's your host, a wealth of information, ladies and gentlemen, Mary Souza.
Hi, welcome back. Hey, we've been talking about the Republican Women Candidate Forum that was held here last night at the Coeur d'Alene Inn. There were about 25 to 30 candidates in the room. Many of them, about 19 of them were for legislative positions from districts 2, 3, and 4, which are Coeur d'Alene and then the areas right around Coeur d'Alene. And then we also had two candidates that actually traveled, one from Boise, Senator Russ Fulcher, who's a candidate for governor, and just a tremendously great man. I'm very impressed with him. And also another impressive man is Jim Schmelik. He is a county commissioner from Idaho County, which is the Grangeville area, and Jim is running for lieutenant governor. And the two of them took the time to travel all the way up here for the forum last night, even though they were given almost no time at all. So we have a second person on the phone right now who is, we had Don who called in and talked to us for some time. He's a great radio voice. He sounds like a DJ. But now we have another person on the phone named Joe. Joe, you were at the forum last night. Thanks for calling.
Oh, wow. Well, it's really good to hear what other people have to say about last night's forum.
Well, you have a great radio voice too, Joe. Thanks for calling. Hey,
thank you.
So what did you think of the forum last night in terms of the content of the answers from the candidates? Was it what you were expecting?
I think it was pretty much, you could definitely see which side people were on. I mean, you have one side that's definitely looking at the status quo, and let's just keep doing things the same way. Let's keep allowing the government to infringe, the federal government to infringe upon our rights, and let's not put up a fight about it. Let's just roll over and let them do whatever they want, because there's no point in fighting it. And then you had your others that are like, wait a minute, we do have our state sovereignty, and we need to fight for that. We need to fight when our liberties are being threatened.
Oh, I agree. In fact, I was watching Fritz Wiedenhoff. I hope I said that name correctly. And I can't even in my mind right now say what. Do you remember the position he's running for?
He's running against Vito Barbieri in District 2, Seat A.
Okay, I thought that's who he was opposing. But Fritz kept saying, well, I'm not going to vote no on things. I just think we need to vote yes. And he kept talking about that, and I thought, well, why don't you just take each measure and weigh it on its merits and decide whether you'll say yes or no on it, because I don't want someone to go down there and just vote yes on everything.
Well, to me, that was just a ludicrous answer, because you do have to weigh the pros and cons of each particular bill that's going forward and decide, is this something that's really going to be good for Idaho? If you're just voting yes down the line, what are you accomplishing? You may be enforcing some rules and regulations that hurt the citizens of Idaho, that cause a burden on them, and you don't want to do that. I mean, the purpose of government has a specific purpose, and it's not to run our lives. And
That's
right now, so much of what is going on the federal level, and we're seeing it on the state level, is that they are interfering in areas where they have no business.
But you know what? The Representative Ed Morris, who's running for re-election, what he said when we were talking about the Obamacare state exchange, he just basically said, well, we can't fight it, so that's all there is to it. We shouldn't even try.
And that is a lazy answer. That is simply laziness. That is simply just rolling over and saying, okay, guys, we might as well just give up. That's not what we do. We're Americans.
And I thought Russ Fulcher had some great alternative options that he offered to everyone, what he calls a parallel track to the Obamacare state exchange that we all wish we didn't have. But several of the incumbents that are running for re-election and were up in this lineup of candidates last night, they voted for it. That was Ed Morris, Luke Malik, and John Getty. They all voted for it, and so they were, of course, having to defend it.
Well, of course they had to defend it. They're up for re-election. But here's something that I think your listeners really need to keep in mind: is it is critical for our survival to have that parallel system in place. Because I think we all know Obamacare is going to implode. It is not sustainable, and we need to have something in place so that we're not forced into a single-payer system.
Absolutely. And because we all know, if you look down the road, that's exactly what the plan is, to force everyone into a single-payer system, and then it's all over. There will be no changing from then.
Absolutely. And one more thing I wanted to comment on is the Common Core.
Yes.
And I could not believe the number of candidates who said, well, we need to give it a chance. That sounds very familiar to something that I heard Nancy Pelosi say. We have to pass the bill before we can know what's in the bill. It's
so true, Joe. That was one of their talking points. We just need to give it a try. And I'm thinking, you want to use our kids as guinea pigs? Why don't you get a system and test it out first and then make sure it is effective, that it has been tested? I mean, you wouldn't just give people a drug, a medication that hadn't been vetted and tried. You wouldn't just say, well, take these pills and see if you feel better, or you might get some terrible reactions from it, or you might get really, really sick from it. No, you would never do that. You have to
Yeah, but the federal government and evidently many of the people in our state leadership have no problem with doing that.
No. So I also, on that same Common Core, I have to ask you, did you notice that they were the people who I personally don't agree with on this Common Core, the ones who were saying we should just give it a try, they all wanted to try to make the point that Common Core, that Idaho Core, is different than Common Core. And we all know it's not. And so I just thought that was really funny, and I kept shaking my head because they are exactly the same thing. It just has a different name on it. But I loved it when Senator Bob Nonini, who is on the State Education Committee, said that he said, I just have to tell you, I was in the room when when this decision was made to call it Idaho Core. It was just a handful of senators, and one of the other senators said, let's just call it Idaho Core. That will sound better to people.
Potato, patata.
But they're not different. And all of the candidates who said we should give it a try were trying to make it look like Idaho Core was different than Common Core. And they are exactly the same thing.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed, I have 2 kids in school, but I also have a number of friends. My kids are older, so the Common Core thing is not as big of an issue in high school as it is in the lower grades.
Yes.
They're really, starting it. But I have a number of friends who have younger children that are in the public schools, and they absolutely hate the Common Core math. It makes no sense. I'm not hearing any parents say, man, I love this.
No.
I mean, sure, we talk about raising the standard, but when it comes to, when the rubber meets the road, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
I think it's really math, more than anything else, is a very important subject for kids to feel confident about. And from what I'm hearing, the feedback that I'm hearing from people is that kids are learning to hate math really, really quickly, that they are being intimidated by the story problems that are included in the Common Core that don't make sense. In fact, my husband's cousin is a teacher over in Hawaii, a master teacher. She's been teaching for 30-some years, and she is no conservative. She's quite liberal. She does not like the Common Core at all. She said the testing questions are just phenomenally confusing, and that she and her class pick up 1 or 2 of the test questions every day to just go over them, and she said at least half of the questions are wrong. And she said it's just terrible.
Well, I don't understand how. I don't understand why we would take on an unproven system.
Right.
I mean, we've gone through Race to the Top, No Child Left Behind, all of these things. It seems like every time the federal government tries to push something off on us, they have to offer offer these little carrots, whether it be Obamacare, Common Core, whatever it be. If it's so great, we should be running after it. They wouldn't have to bribe us.
Yes. They should bring it to us with a proven record in trials, in all those kinds of things, and then start it out by doing it just in a certain area. Maybe, but there is no way to me that I can see Common Core being a success because it tries to standardize everything, and our kids cannot be standardized, and they should not be standardized.
Well, the only way to really change the status quo in our education system is competition.
Yes.
Competition raises the bar all the way across. And until we have more competition, until the government stops listening to the teachers' unions and we start really putting our kids first and really start looking into this issue and finding out, how do kids learn? Give parents a choice. Open up more charter schools. I find it interesting that the STEM Academy that just recently opened up on the Raptor and Prairie, before they even opened, before they were even proven, they had a waiting list.
Yes.
What does that tell you? I mean, that tells you that parents are really concerned about the education of their children.
They're desperate.
And they're willing to try something. Yeah, they're desperate, and they're willing to try something that hasn't necessarily been proven. But you know what? We need to do better than what the federal government is offering. We need to come up with our own solutions. The people locally, the people of Idaho, we have ideas. We know our children. We know what makes them tick. And so we're the ones that need to be getting involved. And
Russ Fulcher said last night.
This, yeah.
Russ Fulcher said last night that he wants the standards to be extremely high in Idaho, and he wants our kids to achieve very great levels of excellent education. But he does not want it in a standardized format that is controlled by others outside of Idaho. It should be people in Idaho. And I'm telling you, Joe, I was, and I mentioned this last night at the forum, I've been doing a lot of research into Common Core, and Common Core has a direct connection to the federal government. We're going to have a complete show on it on May 16th here on this radio network. But there is a complete connection to the federal government. And even though Senator Getty says, we don't get federal funds for Common Core, or we don't get Race to the Top money for Common Core, and it's not a federally run program. But if you look at the founding documents of Common Core in Idaho, the ones that Governor Otter and Superintendent Luna signed, there is a whole paragraph at the end detailing out how the federal government will be involved, where the funding will come from, what their rights and obligations will be. It is definitely on path to become a federally controlled program. And the other thing is the data. Did you hear what Kathy Sims said last night at the forum about the data?
I missed that. Fill me in.
She said that was the biggest concern to her about Common Core was the data, because it is being collected on every child, and it's not the same as being I can't say that word. It's the aggregate information, but there's a bigger way to say that. But the aggregate information that's not, it doesn't say Sally Smith in grade 4, but actually the way that they are doing this Common Core data collection is a lot more personal than you would think. And they really can track each child, because each child has a student ID number through this Common Core thing. And
Correct.
They get tracked all the way through. And Kathy said the more she hears about this or learns about this data mining, because she's been doing a lot of research too, that it is the biggest concern for her over and above everything else. So
there doesn't seem to be anything. It seems like the best thing to do is scrap it and do something different that is state and locally born. But what I'm seeing here is we have a choice with the candidates. I've been to several of the forums. I have met with many of the candidates. I think I've had conversations with every candidate running in Kootenai County, and most of them statewide as well. We have a choice. We can either elect people who are serving the federal government, who will continue to do that will continue to be the busboys for the federal government, or we can choose to have people who are going to serve the people of Idaho.
Yes.
And that's that's the choice.
Well, I agree, and I do think that there's a level of crony capitalism involved in these things too, because in Common Core and in the Obamacare exchange here in Idaho, there are very big corporate entities that want those things in place the way they are. In the Obamacare situation, it's the big insurance companies, Blue Cross Blue Shield here in Idaho, that were protected by having a state exchange as opposed to a federal exchange. They didn't have to have the outside competition coming into Idaho, and that was certainly a part of the decision. Yeah. I know, a big part of it.
Right. Well, here's another thing though that I found out. It's just a little tidbit. You know that Bruce Reed was formerly the chief of staff for Senator Joe Biden, and he's no longer that. He is now the head of the Broad Foundation in San Francisco, which is an educational foundation they have given millions and millions and millions of dollars towards Common Core.
Really?
And are really pushing it within corporations. And, they're working with the Gates Foundation. And, there is a huge corporate push. And I'm telling you, it's not an accident that Mr. Reed went from the White House to education, because he knows that's exactly where you reach the next generation.
Oh, that just scares the bejeebers out of me. That we have to connect these dots, Joe. We've got to tell people what's really going on, because the big publishing is behind that as well. So, and the Gates Foundation has given hundreds of millions of dollars as well, and they have admitted that they are mining for future customers and creating databases and creating database companies to manage the databases. So, this is really a lot of control outside of our state and outside of our area for our kids and our school district. I really appreciate you taking the time to call in and give me your thoughts for what went on last night and the future of Idaho. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for calling.
Well, keep up the good work, Mary, and best of luck to you.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. We are so deep in this, we could just probably talk for another hour or more about these issues. We didn't even really get into too much of the content, rather than, about what was discussed last night at the candidate forum that was sponsored by the Republican women. But what we do need to do on a constant basis is remind ourselves that we can change what is going on in our government if we all get involved. And so I do appreciate all the people that came to the candidate forum last night, and all the candidates that are running for office, even those I don't agree with. They're stepping forward, they're putting their hat in the ring, they're saying they'll take a chance. But as voters, I implore you, be very careful before you vote to check out each of the candidates. And if they're incumbents, make sure you look at their record and what they have actually done with their time in office, because you have honored them with your vote, or you're getting ready to, and you better know what you're going to get. So honesty, integrity, check the voting records, and thank you so much for listening again. Let me leave you with a favorite quote of mine from Winston Churchill, who said, and this seems very timely right now, he said, "This is no time for ease and comfort. It is the time to dare and endure." So let's go forward and make a difference in our communities. I'm Mary Souza, and thanks for listening to the Common Sense Express on the Heads Up Radio Network. Have a great afternoon.
Conclusions expressed in this broadcast are those of the host and their guests, and not necessarily those of Heads Up Radio. The host and guest are solely responsible for all content.
Hi, this is Mary Souza. For the last 5 years, I've represented your views in my weekly newsletter on government issues. Now I'm running for the Idaho Senate to represent you in Boise. I believe that Idaho must stand strong for freedom and against the overreach of the federal government into our individual and states' rights. We have seen this invasion by Washington, D.C. through the state Obamacare exchange and the Common Core program in our schools. My opponent, Senator John Getty, was a major supporter of both of these measures. But with new leadership in Boise, we can return control over health care and education to the people of our state. I will work hard for positive changes to protect your rights and the rights of small businesses and jobs in Idaho. So please, if you want a strong voice of principle in Boise, elect me, Mary Souza, for Idaho State Senate District 4. I promise that I will keep standing for the values that made America and Idaho great.
Paid for by Mary Souza for Idaho.